Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask me if I would cover the other end of the spectrum when it comes to vegans who are making the exact opposite claim the ketogenic advocates are oftentimes making, and that's that low-fat, high-carb diets can't cause fat gain, and it has to do with the fact of the way de novo lipogenesis works and everything. Could I address the other end of the spectrum? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. All right, this is hilarious because it's so funny. When you come online, you see both groups of people who pretend like calories in, calories out don't count. And the hilarious thing is they're both opposite extreme diets. And it's funny because if you were to listen to either one of these groups, you would think that calories don't matter, that if you either just eat really high fat or if you eat really high carbs, that you won't gain any body fat. And the insanity of it is both groups have anecdotal evidence to support their claims. And it's really funny because it's like when I come in and talk about the ketogenic diets, about how they don't actually bypass calories in, calories out, the people will stand here and go, oh, well, you know, you're fat. And it's so crazy. It's like, in what world am I fat? Maybe in your weird-ass diluted bodybuilding world full of body image disorders, but not according to medical doctors, whose opinion I value a lot more. But that being said, they'll say, hey, you know, if you just did a ketogenic diet, you wouldn't be so fat. Really, I did keto for a year straight on YouTube. I didn't get ripped, even while doing cardio every day. Oh, then the vegans will say, well, if you did a low-fat vegan diet, you would be ripped. I also did a low-fat vegan diet for 9 months straight on YouTube while doing cardio every day. I didn't get ripped. See, here's the thing, guys. Calories still count. All right, calories count. I eat a lot of food. I train hard. I eat a lot of food, a lot of calories. Therefore, I am not burning through the calories. I'm not burning more calories than I'm consuming. It doesn't matter which of these diets you do. You're not going to lose significant amounts of body fats without a caloric deficit. Now, when the vegans talk about this, what are they talking about? They're talking about the fact that de novo lipogenesis is actually rare in humans. We now know that. We figured this out about 10, 15 years ago. All the data started coming in and they started studying it closer in humans and found that, yeah, humans don't actually store carbs as body fat easily. It's actually very difficult for us to do so. Unlike a lot of animal studies, rodents actually do it really, really easy. Rodents do it at like 100 times the rate that humans can. And so they're saying, look, if you don't eat a lot of fat, you won't gain fat. That there's a metabolic advantage due to the thermic effect of carbs, and when you overeat carbohydrates, it tends to get burned off as body heat, so it doesn't break calories in, calories out, and you won't gain fat. Now, their statement is actually closer to true than the ketogenic people. Ketogenic followers oftentimes have this idea that circulating insulin from eating carbohydrates is actually the cause of fat gain, without realizing that surplus fat you eat gets stored without needing insulin to do so. Insulin isn't required for that. What ends up happening here is that ultimately what people need to grasp is that your body burns what you give it as a fuel source. That's its preferential fuel. It's going to burn what you feed it. And until it burns through what you feed it, it's not going to tap into your body fat. What fuel it used before that's largely irrelevant. But the high carb people have it closer to right. They are right in the sense of your body will be resistant to store extra carbohydrates that you eat as body fat, other than fructose, because fructose is converted, and it's not glucose. Glucose is very hard to convert into body fat. Your body will store it in muscle cells. It will store it in tissue as glycogen far more preferentially than it will store it as body fat. And their idea is that if you eat a really low-fat diet, your body really can't gain fat because it needs some of that fat for metabolic purposes, and it's going to use it up and you won't gain fat. And again, they need to understand, don't apply that to fructose. Fructose is easily converted by the liver into triglycerides. That's why if you eat a lot of fructose, your triglyceride levels go up. All right, not all carbs are equal on this. But the thing is, they need to understand that that is limited, meaning, yes, you will gain less fat on a really high carb, low fat diet if you eat a caloric surplus, but you will still gain body fat. And that's what needs to be understood. Yes, it is metabolically expensive to induce de novo lipogenesis, and it won't happen immediately. Meaning someone who's in a caloric deficit And it doesn't matter whether it's from a ketogenic diet or a high carb diet. If you're in a caloric deficit and you spend 1 to 2 days overfeeding carbs, there have been human studies on this. There are human trials on this, done in a metabolic ward, that eating 1,000 calorie surplus for 2 days straight resulted in almost zero body fat gain. Meaning when they studied it in the blood work, it appeared that even eating an extra 300 grams of carbs on a really low fat diet above your maintenance, only about 1 or 2 grams, less than 1% of the surplus carbohydrates got converted into fat by the body. And they tended to, their body temperature goes up, body heat goes up, your body burns it off as heat. So calories out does go up. It's not bypassing calories in out. It makes calorie out go up tremendously. People tend to get more active, they burn more. Basically, it is essentially metabolism going up. However, after around the 48-hour mark, if you continue to overfeed carbohydrates, your body will increase its de novo lipogenesis, all right? And particularly when dietary fat is low, your body will eventually start storing those extra carbs as fat. It won't store them as efficiently as it will surplus fat. And that's what you need to understand. When people talk about using a diet method like this, they are talking about eating rock bottom levels of fat. Because when you overeat carbs, your body starts storing almost all the fat that you eat, because it's got its preferred fuel source. The body actually runs better on carbohydrates. It prefers carbohydrates. But people who are eating really low-fat diets, yeah, there's not really much fat to store, and they're needing some of the fat for basic metabolic function, so it's getting used up. However, at a certain threshold, usually by the 3-day mark, the body will start increasing de novo lipogenesis, and it will start storing carbohydrates as fat. But what they're saying is that you won't gain fat. You will, it just will not be equal to a caloric surplus from dietary fat. You will still gain fat, and that needs to be understood. A caloric surplus will cause fat gain, but it isn't equal. Meaning if you eat 1,000 calorie surplus on a really high carb diet, you won't gain as much fat. That is true, because there are several processes going on. Number one, the increase in body heat from the mitochondria and the muscle cells shuttling in the surplus carbs. Body doesn't want to store carbs as fat. It will tend to burn it off as body heat, but at a certain point, that can't continue. It can't keep doing it once glycogen stores are fully saturated. Once the body temperature reaches a certain point, it's only going to go so far with it. Then it will have to start doing it. However, the process of converting glucose into fat is metabolically expensive, meaning, I don't remember the exact number, but it is down somewhere like 30% of the calories have to be used up to make the actual conversion. So in other words, even those extra carbs that are being stored as fat, some of them are being used in the conversion process. It requires energy. It's not like a free exchange. It's not easy to convert glucose into fat. So there has to be energy involved. Just like there's a thermic effect to using protein for fuel. Protein, in order for your body to utilize it, has a high thermic effect because it has to basically cleave it apart, and that requires energy. Protein is metabolically expensive to use for anything. That's one reason high protein diets work well for fat loss, satiety, and the energy expenditure involved. But yeah, it's not a direct storage. It's not like all of the carbs that you're eating are then converting to body fat. You will gain less fat. In other words, someone who's eating 1,000 calorie surplus from fat on a higher fat diet, or just 1,000 extra calories of fat in general added to your maintenance, will cause almost a proportionate fat gain. A person who does that is going to gain close to 2 pounds of fat every single week. But a person who's on a low-fat diet who adds 1,000 calories of carbohydrates isn't going to gain 2 pounds of fat a week. They are essentially right. It's going to be in the ounces. They're probably at most going to gain half a pound, maybe 3/4 of a pound of fat. It isn't equal. It's not equal. So they are right, but it's not breaking calories in, calories out. It's that the carbohydrates require your body to expend energy in various ways before it will start storing them as body fat. And you have to do it for several days before it will even start, meaning one big high carb overfeeding in the middle of the diet won't put any body fat on you. But the thing is, a lot of people's binges, or they'll go eat some cake or pie that's, like 40 or 50% fat by calorie. It's not just carbs you're eating. And people need to understand overfeeding of processed sugars still has fructose in it. Fructose is converted by the liver into triglycerides very easily. It's not a de novo lipogenesis process. It's got a separate process there that the liver converts them into blood triglycerides, which do get stored in fat cells directly quite easily. So we're not talking about an apples to oranges comparison here. So the vegans who are saying this are only partially right. They're only partially right because they're honestly thinking that your body can't gain body fat off of a carbohydrate surplus. It absolutely can. It can, and it will eventually if you push it hard enough. It just won't be as much fat. But you can't eat unlimited carbohydrate calories and still lose weight and lose body fat. That's not going to work that way. You will eventually start storing body fat from it. It just won't be as much. But, you know, if you continue to gain fat and gain fat and gain fat, you will eventually be obese. And that's the point that needs to be made there. So, again, we've got to dispel these myths, and people do need to understand that you can't bypass calories. There are ways you can get around them and skirt the rules and bend the rules to some extent, but you can't break those rules. The human body doesn't work that way unless it has a way to just excrete unused calories, which is what happens sometimes with type 1 diabetes, and that is not a metabolically healthy situation to be in. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.